Thank you so much for being with us on this Thursday evening on Nation Tonight. We are beginning with a word of caution. Keep yourselves hydrated and protected from the heat wave that has the country battling. Now, it is a spring heat wave and it's not looking good. The Indian Met Department has predicted heat wave conditions in large parts of the country for at least the next 5 days. A heat wave warning has been announced for Rajasthan, Delhi, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Odisha. Meanwhile, an orange alert has been issued for the national capital. And even the heat wave alert for Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh has been upgraded to orange now. So temperatures in India so pass the 44 degrees Celsius mark. And the situation in the entire subcontinent is no different, as Pakistan too has now issued a heat wave alert in all its provinces.
दिल्ली का जो सफदरजंग है, जो मेन सिटी जो सेंट्रल है, तो temperature may go to 42.5. Yesterday it was 41.5. But as you told, outskirts like some of the station which reported 44, like Sports Complex, Najafgarh, Reej, all these areas they may touch 44 to 45. So it is increasing. So there will be heat wave. We have updated the alert to orange.
And as if heat wave wasn't enough, in comes the power outage woes too. Yes, it's a double whammy, as India is also staring at a major power crisis as heat wave and low coal stocks have put immense pressure on thermal power plants across the country. Now, several states are reporting unscheduled power cuts amid the sweltering heat wave. Now, India experienced its hottest March in 122 years this year, and with that, its electricity demand has risen at a very fast pace, nearly the fastest, rather, in at least 38 years. The centre, in fact, says that there was a 12% rise in power consumption this year as compared to the last one. Concerns on how India will be coping with the surging demand for power amidst record high temperatures thereby aren't unfounded.
आज से पहले बिजली अच्छी तरह से रहती थी विंटर्स में, पता नहीं इस साल क्या हो गया। यहाँ पे सुबह में प्रॉब्लम होती है, सहरी में खाने में भी प्रॉब्लम होती है, शाम को इफ्तारी होती है, उस टाइम भी लाइट की प्रॉब्लम होती है।
जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं कि हमारा जो सहरी का टाइम होता है बिल्कुल अंधेरा होता है, और उस टाइम माना जाता है कि लोगों के पास इन्वर्टर होते हैं, लेकिन वो गरीब तबका जिनके पास अभी जो है वो जैसे कि वो बोलते हैं ना कैंडल्स के साथ सहरी करना, या बिना जो है वो कहा जाएगा कि मतलब लाइट नहीं होती है, अचानक से लाइट चली जाती है, सहरी का टाइम है, और बिल्कुल मस्जिदों में जाना होता है, और मस्जिदों में वो सहरी के टाइम जाना और इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का दिक्कतों का सामना करना, बहुत मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ा।
देखिए, पावर की सिचुएशन जो क्राइसिस बहुत है, इफ्तार के टाइम सहरी के टाइम पावर कट होता है, बहुत तकलीफ है लोगों को। गवर्नमेंट फ्लॉप है इस टाइम, कोई कुछ सहूलियत नहीं है पावर के क्राइसिस के।
यहाँ पर बहुत प्रॉब्लम है फेस हो रही है, सुबह शाम बिजली नहीं होती है, खासकर इफ्तियार के टाइम, चूँकि बाबरकत महीना चल रहा है और आज बड़ा दिन भी है। रोज़े के टाइम जब हम इफ्तियार करते हैं उस टाइम भी बिजली नहीं होती है, जब हम सहरी खाते हैं उस टाइम भी बिजली नहीं होती है, और जो सोलर सिस्टम है आज हमारे पास यहाँ मौसम भी अच्छा नहीं है, वो भी डाउन हो रहे हैं। हम कैसे अब इसका इंतज़ाम करेंगे, हम खाए पिएंगे कैसे? ये तो इसको गवर्नमेंट को इसके बारे में कुछ सोचना चाहिए, इसके बारे में कुछ इंतज़ाम करना चाहिए।
जहाँ तक हालिया अनशेड्यूल्ड पावर कट्स का सवाल है, बहुत ही अफसोसनाक वाक़ा है ये। हमारी सहरी है, हमारी इफ्तारी है, और ख़ासकर तरावी के टाइम पे जो बिना पूछे बिजली गायब रहती है, तो उससे हमें परेशानी इतनी हो जाती है, लोगों की इतनी परेशानी हो जाती है कि इंसान बहुत दुखी हो जाता है।
Those were reactions from Jammu and Kashmir. Now, Jammu and Kashmir also is experiencing unscheduled power cuts. There have been massive protests that have been witnessed in Jammu and Kashmir. And even as the common man bears the brunt of these power outages, politics speaks. Let's listen into these reactions from both Mehbooba Mufti and Omar Abdullah.
जम्मू कश्मीर पूरे मुल्क को बिजली देता है, पूरे मुल्क के कारखाने, पूरे मुल्क के घर जो हैं हमारी बिजली से रोशन होते हैं, और हमारे यहाँ तो बदतरीन किस्म का अंधेरे में हमें धकेल दिया है। आज आपने देखा कि रमज़ान के मुबारक महीने में न तो इफ्तारी के वक्त बिजली, न तो सहरी के वक्त बिजली, और जम्मू में इतनी गर्मी में वहाँ भी बिजली का बहुत बुरा हाल है।
हैरानगी की बात है कि बाकी टाइम आपको लाइट है, लेकिन सहरी के लिए जब उठते हो तो अंधेरा। बाकी टाइम आपको लाइट है, लेकिन इफ्तारी के टाइम अंधेरा। जब तरावियाँ पढ़नी होती हैं तो अंधेरा, और उसके बाद फिर लाइट वापस। कुछ तो हमारे जज्बातों का आप कदर करिए। लेकिन हम शिकायत करने पे मजबूर होते हैं जब बाकी टाइम हमें लाइट दिखती है, लेकिन जब हमें चाहिए होता है तब आप हमें लाइट नहीं देते हो।
My colleague Ishan Wani now joins me live on the broadcast for more on this. Ishan, we just heard reactions from both Mehbooba Mufti and also Omar Abdullah. Now, both these leaders are talking on similar lines. They, in fact, have really blamed the centre for these power outages and also targeting of one community. However, just take us through what is happening on ground. Because when we talk about these unscheduled power cuts, how bad is it? Because we are looking at 40 degrees in Jammu and Kashmir. That is the kind of, in fact, in Jammu, that is the kind of temperatures that we are looking at. And it's just about April right now. We're not even into May. So are these allegations really coming from some important ground, or this is only political posturing?
Well, if you look at the problems that the common man is facing, there are unscheduled power cuts which are long. It can be from in an hour, there can be 4 to 5 power cuts. It can be for 6 to 8 hours every day during the daytime. Now, why are people outraged? Simply because in summers, you generally don't hear power cuts in Kashmir Valley. Because during the winter time, when there's a peak load system, that a lot of electricity is needed because people try to keep themselves warm, use electric appliances and equipment at, in numbers. So that is when the electricity deficiency comes in, and then people and electricity department tries to send a message that don't use so many electric gadgets because the electricity is less in number. But during the summer time, there's uninterrupted power. But this year it has been unprecedented. Power cuts taking place, people hitting streets, demanding electricity. At the same time, there's water issues as well, because we've seen that people are hitting the streets in North Kashmir's Bandipur trade association coming out, burning the bills that the electricity department had sent them, saying that why should we pay electric fees when there has been no electricity. Now, at the political level, there are political parties lashing out at the center as well as the BJP government, calling out the slogan Naya Kashmir, saying that it is all a farce. There are counter allegations, but the government says that they are taking key steps to make sure that the electricity is provided, sufficiently. Now, central government, seeing all this crisis in Kashmir Valley, has allocated more than 200 megawatts of electricity. Now, there's already 1700 megawatt electricity which is needed, and 900 megawatts is only what every plant is generating in Kashmir Valley, and all the electricity supply that comes to Kashmir Valley. Now, there is a money set aside for the purchase of electricity, but that hasn't been done in number that was target that was set, given the fact that there's already electricity deficiency in rest of India, and the electricity exchange that could have been done is not happening because there's also coal shortages in India. Then there are needs and demands from other states as well which need to be fulfilled. Political blame game saying that it's Ramadan, so people should get adequate electricity supply, and some terming it that it is because of the Ramadan that electricity supply has been interrupted. But one has to see that what precisely measures the government takes in coming days.
Absolutely. Ishan, thank you so much. So that was the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Let's take a look at what is happening in Punjab. The state of Punjab is on the brink of a blackout with coal reserves left for only 3 to 8 days. Power generation has slumped due to the ongoing coal shortage. In fact, several areas are facing unannounced power cuts. In fact, farmers today staged protest blocking the highway in Punjab's Firozpur over the power crisis. The farmers alleged that the Punjab government had promised round-the-clock electricity to the farmers, but the long power cuts have hit their cultivation.
जब भी समर सीजन शुरू होता है और पैडी सीजन शुरू होता है तो बिजली की डिमांड तो बढ़ती है। हर वर्ष ऐसे ही होता है, बढ़ती है डिमांड। लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हमारे पास सोर्सेज नहीं है, हम वो डिमांड पूरी नहीं कर पाएंगे, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है। देखिए, मार्च 2021 में देख लो तो हमने 7500 मेगावाट बिजली प्रोवाइड की थी, तो अब मार्च 2022 में हमने 8500 मेगावाट दी है। 1000 मेगावाट पहले से ज़्यादा डिमांड बढ़ी, हमने ज़्यादा दी है। ऐसे हम नेक्स्ट ये अप्रैल में, मई, जून, जुलाई जब तक भी होगा, हम सभी डिमांड जो वो पूरी करने जा रहे हैं।
वैसे अब मेरी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट से दरख्वास्त है कि वो इस टाइम पे जो पंजाब को प्रोवाइड करे, कैसे भी किस तरह भी, ये जो 1 महीना 2 महीने लाइट जरूरी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट प्रोवाइड करे किसी भी तरह।
लाइट देख लो, अभी हम शॉपकीपर हैं, अभी काम नहीं हो पा रहा हमारा, तो सारा इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पर डिपेंड करता है। हमारा काम रिपेयरिंग का रहता है, सुबह से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं है, सिर्फ बोनी की है हमने, बाद से 12 बजे, अभी 3 बज रहे हैं, लाइट ही नहीं है अभी।
And my colleague Gurpreet now joins me live on the broadcast. Gurpreet, we are getting those visuals for our viewers where the farmers ended up blocking the highway in Firozpur in Punjab. That is the kind of outrage that this particular power outage is really seeing as far as the state of Punjab is concerned. But just take us through, what is the situation really like? How bad is it? And how badly are the farmers getting impacted because of this incessant power cut?
Well, that if we can talk about the power cuts, for the last so many days, we have seen that there is a lot of hue and cry in the various districts of Punjab. And if we can specifically talk about this protest, which is being held by the farmers in Firozpur, they feel that they have over frustrated because it's the time of sowing of the sowing in the field, which is going on, but that was not able to be done because they are not able to get the proper electricity and proper supply of electricity. And at the same time, even if we can talk about Chandigarh and nearby area, adjoining areas of Punjab, whether it's to Mohali, Zirpur and another areas, even the people who are staying there, they have been complaining of power crisis. They say that there are unscheduled cut by the power department. At the same time, we have seen that today there is a long clarification from Aam Aadmi Party because they feel that one of the thermal plant was not working because of some technical snag, and they say that now it's in the function and they will be able to give a demand and supply as per the requirement of people of Punjab. But as of now, if we can talk about the situation here in Punjab, in the maximum districts, people are complaining of unscheduled power cut, and there is power crisis, and for that it's very very difficult for the farmers as well as for the common man to stay here without electricity because everything is getting affected. At the same time, it's a challenge for the government also how to fulfill the demand of the people and residents of Punjab, and specifically the farmers who are holding protest, who are demanding that there should be continuity in the power supply so that their farms should not be affected at all. So let's see that how the government is going to combat with this situation. But yes, of course, it's a very very important situation at this point of time in Punjab, and government has to take this challenge, and government has to take some steps. Otherwise, in the coming days, because it's just starting of summer season, in the coming day there can be more cut, because if we can talk about specifically Zirpur, what we have learned from the power department official, they say that there is a huge demand as compared to the supply of electricity, specifically in this season, specifically in month of May, June and July. So let's see that how the government is going to combat this situation, because we have seen that power department minister, he has already given assurance. He is saying that in March month they had given the supply and 75 megawatt, and now they are able to provide 8500 megawatt, but still there are a lot of people who feel that there are unscheduled cuts, and as I already told you that it's a challenging situation for Punjab government. Let's see that how the government is going to work on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Gurpreet. Thank you so much for joining us with all those details there. It is, of course, a challenging situation for the government in the state, and also the state that is just about reeling with the growing number of farmer suicides. Remember, 14 farmers have died by suicide in just about a month, and all this because of the decline in the wheat produce. And this is because of the heat wave that the country is currently seeing. And now this power outage is something that the farmers are not able to bear. So this is also something that we'd like to underline here while we get you this particular story from Punjab. Getting you this breaking news update from Delhi, and the Delhi Power Minister Satyendra Jain has written a letter to the centre regarding the review meeting and adequate coal supply. Due to disruption of power supply from the Dadri National Capital Power Station and also Feroz Gandhi Unscheduled thermal power plant, there may be a problem with the 24-hour power supply to many essential institutions that include Delhi metros and hospitals. Now, if this happens, it is going to massively impact severe operations when it comes to transport in the national capital and also, more importantly, hospitals. My colleague Alok now joins me on the broadcast for more on this. Alok, like I was mentioning, this is going to be very, very bad, not just for transportation in the city, but also for hospitals and for patients who are admitted in those.
Has held an emergency meeting here, and in fact, the Power Minister Satyendra Jain, in fact, he called all the officials and understand what is the situation of the power supply in the national capital. Around 30 to 40% of power supply comes from these two power plants, especially in Dadri and Jhajjar. And if there is the coal supply, if there is the very, if the sufficient amount quantity of coal is not coming to those plants, then definitely Delhi will have to suffer the shortage of power supply and important installation, that is the most important the metro is likely to be affected. As we are seeing that in the NCR region, whether it's Noida, Ghaziabad, Faridabad and Gurugram, all these four districts are facing the power shortage because of the power plants from where the power supply comes. There is the coal shortage. So definitely in those states, the governments are doing their best so that they could provide the power supply and they can restore it. But in the national capital, the government is ready, and definitely now they have written a letter to the central government to provide the coal to these power plants. Thank you.
All right, Alok, thank you so much for joining us with all those details. And let's actually look at what is the kind of power demand in the national capital amid the extreme temperatures and the sweltering heat. Delhi, in fact, has recorded the highest ever power demand for the month of April. At 5,681 megawatts, the demand for power has increased to 29% since April 1st. And with that little update, I'm slipping into a very, very short break, but news and updates continue on the other side. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight, and let's quickly cut into some breaking news that we are getting on the broadcast at this hour. Now, CBI has arrested Sanjay Chhabria of the Radius Developers, one of the biggest borrowers from debt-ridden Diwan Housing Finance Limited. CBI has been probing Yes Bank's former co-founder Rana Kapoor and DFHL Limited since March 2020, and now this arrest by the CBI of Sanjay Chhabria. My colleague Bhavtosh joins me for more details about this particular story. Bhavtosh, an arrest by the Central Bureau of Investigation. What more can you tell us about, this high-profile arrest that we are looking at over here?
Good evening, Griha. In fact, the arrest has taken place exactly a gap of 2 years. The probe in Yes Bank scam had virtually come to a halt, and Sanjay Chhabria was called in for questioning at CBI's Mumbai office at Bandra Kurla complex, and then he was placed under arrest. Now, according to top sources in CBI, Radius Developers had in fact borrowed around 3,000 crore rupees from DHFL for financing of a project in the suburbs of Mumbai. But sources within CBI has said this was nothing but diversion of funds by DHFL. Remember, DHFL was one of the biggest borrowers of Yes Bank, and once they had taken the loan from Yes Bank, they diverted the loan into companies which were virtually shell companies. This money was then diverted and routed back to DHFL. Now, Sanjay Chhabria was a person of interest not only for the CBI but also for the Enforcement Directorate. He was questioned a number of times by both the Federal Probe Agency. Now, in February, at least a dozen odd places in Mumbai and Pune were searched by the CBI. Now, Sanjay Chhabria is also accused of money laundering aspect of the Yes Bank scam. He had always denied these charges, but CBI has said that he was part of an elaborate scheme of diverting the funds. And they have said that because there was substantial evidence against him, he was then subsequently placed under arrest. Tomorrow, he will be produced before a competent court in Mumbai, and CBI will be seeking his further custody.
Right, Bhavtosh, thank you so much for joining us with all those details there. So an arrest by the Central Bureau of Investigation of Sanjay Chhabria. Remember, he's been accused of money laundering, like my colleague Bhavtosh was just mentioning. He, however, has been denying all these allegations. We will keep a tab on what really happens when he is produced before a competent court in Mumbai tomorrow. Let's now talk about the growing COVID figures. And Tamil Nadu remains a concern as the number of COVID cases at IIT Madras continue to rise. Now, 26 more people have tested positive for COVID-19, and with this, the total number of cases has reached 171. Shifting focus to the state of Andhra Pradesh now, Supreme Court has come down heavily on Andhra Pradesh government over the delay in filing its response over allegations of using 1,100 crore rupees worth COVID ex gratia fund to provide subsidy to farmers. The Chief Secretary has been asked to respond by May 13th, and the court warned that this is the state government's last chance and no further time will be granted in this particular regard. So the ex gratia that was actually for COVID relief, that has been actually passed on and given as subsidy to farmers. That is the allegation that is put forth against the government in the state. This is to the tune of 1,100 crore rupees. And this was meant for COVID compensation. However, none of it was given to the families of the victims who've lost their folks because of the virus. And now the Supreme Court, in fact, has asked the government to respond by May 13th. In fact, also warned the state government that this is the last chance that they will be getting for an explanation. Shifting focus now, amid the growing debate over Uniform Civil Code, senior Congress leader Salman Khurshid has said that the government should clarify on the definition of UCC. This comes after Uttar Pradesh government announced to hold Qaumi Chaupals to acquaint people, especially from the Muslim community, with the merits of the Uniform Civil Code. Meanwhile, the newly formed BJP government in Uttarakhand has also recently constituted a committee to prepare a draft of UCC. However, the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which is the leading body of Muslims in the country, has already rejected the idea, calling it unconstitutional.
बताएं कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड क्या है। ऐसा है कि हमारे संविधान में यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड का उल्लेख किया गया है कि ये प्रयास रहेगा हमारे देश का, हमारे सरकारों का ये प्रयास रहेगा कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड लागू किया जाए। लेकिन इसकी परिभाषा जो है वो कभी सामने नहीं आई है कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड क्या है, कैसे लागू होगा और इसका क्या प्रभाव किसी पर पड़ेगा। यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड हिंदू कोड तो नहीं होगा। ये तो नहीं कहा सरकार ने कि हम हिंदू कोड लागू करेंगे, ये कहा कि हम यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड लागू करेंगे। तो अगर इस्लाम धर्म में हिंदू धर्म से बेहतर व्यवस्था अगर होगी तो वो ली जा सकती है। अगर ईसाई धर्म में दोनों धर्मों से बेहतर व्यवस्था होगी तो वो ली जा सकती है। अगर जैन धर्म में कुछ और है वो इससे बेहतर है तो वो ली जा सकती है। तो पहले ये बताएं कि ये इनकी मंशा क्या है, इनके मन में क्या बात है।
And fuel continues to wreak havoc in the political circles as the centre and states are still sparring over who's to blame over the rise in fuel prices. And all it took was the Prime Minister urging the opposition-ruled states to cut down VAT. Now, Congress MP Rahul Gandhi has waded into the controversy, claiming that Prime Minister is abdicating responsibility on skyrocketing fuel prices. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has alleged that the centre made revenue when crude oil prices fell and increased fuel prices after state elections. The West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee also claimed that fuel prices will soon be hiked once again, and at the same time, she demanded an immediate reduction in LPG and fuel prices. While Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Ajit Pawar, has called the centre out for always passing the buck and pinning the blame on the states rather than acting on the problem. In fact, Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, also joined the chorus, saying that the misery of the common man cannot be trivialized by unnecessarily blaming the states.
When the oil prices kept dropping, just imagine, from 130 down to 30, we should have seen petrol prices at the pump drop dramatically. But what happened instead, the union government kept increasing the taxes on petrol and diesel. The union government, which basically makes 18-20% of its revenue on these taxes alone, is asking the question, why did the states not cut, or why did some states not cut when we cut? The first question I would ask is, actually the facts are wrong, because the government of Tamil Nadu cut before the union government cut. We cut in August, they only cut in November for the elections. We cut after the elections, they cut before the elections.
बाहेरनं ज्यावेळेस विंधन येतं त्याच्यावरचा टॅक्स केंद्र सरकार पहिला लावतं आणि त्या राज्यामध्ये ती राज्य सरकार लावतात. केंद्राने पण त्यांनी लावलेला पण टॅक्स मग कमी करावा.
Let's now shift focus. Kerala is supposedly one of the safest states in the country with lesser number of reported sexual assault cases from the state. Why then is the film industry, and mind you, one of the most popular and successful ones in the country, is lacking in providing a safe atmosphere to its female members? We told you about Malayalam producer actor Vijay Babu being accused of sexually assaulting a female actor and then disclosing the survivor's identity through a social media live session. Now, this news is dominating national headlines, even as the actor Dileep is still going ahead and his matter is still sub judice, with new skeletons tumbling out of the closet every now and then. The woman in the case of Vijay Babu appeared in movies produced by Vijay Babu's production house, also had filed a complaint with the police on April 22nd and detailed it through a Facebook post because of the physical assault that she suffered and also the sexual exploitation that she had to go through at the hands of Vijay Babu. So after Dileep, another actor from the Malayalam film industry and the Kannada film industry, in fact, is now facing sexual assault charges. Now, to discuss the rampant sexual assault cases that have come out of the Kannada industry, I'm now joined on the broadcast by author Advaita Kala and also actor Harshika Punasha. Thank you so much, Advaita and Harshika, for joining me on the broadcast. This is an important discussion that we'd like to have over here on Mirror Now, because this is something that is growing by the bunch. We have, Women in Cinema Collective, which is already there in the industry. However, they have raised these cases in the past as well, but the situation remains the same.
Right. Who's that for? Sorry.
Advaita, if you would like to.
Yeah. Sure. I think it's first of all very brave for these young women to come forward at this time, because the film industry in general in our country is very male dominated, and it is a star-run system where the male producer, the male star are really all powerful. So it's extremely challenging and difficult for a woman who is trying to make it in this very competitive business to come out and actually say something. Having said that, I think it's important that we also maintain a certain amount of balance when it comes to these issues, because they are are at this present time, or when they begin, and I'm not being specific about any particular case, but when they start out, when this accusation first emerges, it is usually a he said, she said sort of situation before the proof comes out. And I think this is a critical period. It is the golden art, so to speak, as far as sexual assault cases are concerned, because if we, as the public, as the media, as commentators, take a side of the powerful individual and completely deny the rights of the other individual who is accused, this powerful individual, then we will deter other victims from coming forward. And remember, predatory behavior like this is not restricted to just one victim. Unfortunately, it is widespread. And what we have seen in the past, very recently with the Harry Weinstein case in Hollywood, is that once women are treated with a little respect when they come forward like this and not assaulted all over again in the public sphere, other women gain courage to come forward. And this only bolsters the case, because remember, these acts of transgressions happen under closed doors, in closed doors. So you don't have that proof that you would have, say, in the case of another crime. So it's very, very important that we comment on this, we cover this very sensitively.
Absolutely. Adwaita, it's interesting that you also mentioned Harvey Weinstein. In fact, we have a very recent case of Dileep, and right from that very film industry. So we really do not have to go that far. But I will actually come to you now, Harshika. I wanted to understand what is the atmosphere like in the industry. I did mention the Women in Cinema Collective. They have been raising this issue of that atmosphere to really be in favor of the females in the industry. There is a directive by the High Court in the state saying that there has to be internal complaints committee that needs setting up because of these growing number of reported sexual assault cases. So you tell me, what is the atmosphere like, as far as this industry is concerned, how safe it is for women?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I totally agree with what Adwaita just mentioned, because this matter is very sensitive, and we cannot just talk about one woman or everyone in one, because it depends on each individual. Like when it comes to me, I can only talk about myself, but I can just say that I've had a wonderful experience. This is my 12th year in the industry, and I've worked in 8 different industries, including Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Bhojpuri, Kodava, Konkani, Tulu. I've done regional languages as well. I must say I've had a very, very good experience. The atmosphere you asked about is beautiful. People take very good care, and I've always been treated very nice. I've been taken very good care, and there are directors who treat me like a daughter. There are producers who treat me like a sister. So I've had a very, very nice experience. But when I really listen to these victims, who come across such horrible experience, it's very arduous to even talk about it, because I don't know. I mean, even if, I can't even imagine myself in that position, and it's very painful. It's very, very hurting.
But Harshika, Adwaita also mentioned about this predatory behavior. Do you see this happening because there are a lot of actors who are also producers, and there are a lot of young actors like yourself who are looking for, roles in big films there. Do you think this kind of a predatory behavior is there? It's very rampant, because here in this particular case, we're talking about Vijay Babu. He, in fact, went on his social media, went live on his Facebook, and ended up naming the victim.
Right, that's very unfair to do, and it's not right. Like Adwaita mentioned. What happens is women want to come forward, women want to act. There are so many young women out there who are just studying now, but their future is to become an actress. They want to become a superstar in future. And such things are so scary, they don't even want to come out. They'll be like, okay, I'll do something else. I don't want to get into acting. If this is how it is portrayed, this is how, it looks so scary even for me as an actress. My parents were so scared to put me into acting. They were like, no, take some other field. I was doing my engineering, and they said, please get into something else, because that's how it was portrayed. But then after I got into the industry, it is not like that. It's very clean, very safe. wherever I worked, it's been, I mean, by God's grace, it's been very, very, very safe. But then, like you're mentioning, of course, yes, it's a male-dominant industry. Men are looked at as superstars, and it's very few. Like I can name very few actresses who are like called the female superstars. It's usually the men who are dominant. But such cases, it's you can name them, it's very few, but still it's very, very, very scary is all I want to say, because
okay,
as a
all right,
woman,
Adwaita,
I don't
do you think
want
anything
to...
has happened after that entire Me Too movement? Because we were talking about Harvey Weinstein, we were also we know how much of talk happened after Tanushree Datta really came out, against Nana Patekar. But nothing really has happened after that. We had seen a lot of cases. Sajid Khan is one of them, is one of the casualties. In fact, the cases associated with him are many. But do you think they've become far and few now? Less and less women, like Harshika was mentioning, have in fact decided to come out, if at all they were facing, cases of sexual assault or harassment?
These are very hard to prove, and that's one of the biggest challenges. And what happens is that a woman who comes forward with her experience and discusses it and shares it with the world, she is taken to task immediately. Suddenly you'll have her being trolled, you'll have people commenting on her personal life, her character, all of those things. So there is this trial in the public sphere. And in our justice system, once you get to that point, which takes its own sweet time, you'll go through another trial where you'll be cross-questioned, and basically everything that is so intimate and personal to you will be discussed in the open. So it becomes very intimidating for a woman to come forward and share her story or her truth, as it may be. Now, that's why I say it's essential that at this stage, when somebody comes forward, we should refrain from sensationalizing it. I'm appalled that he disclosed her identity. I mean, that was completely wrong. And I believe the police has filed an FIR for that, and they are in his pursuit, but he's gone missing. So that is completely unacceptable. The accuser should be given privacy. And also, we as responsible citizens and those of us who want to work towards a safe working environment for women across industries, and especially the film industry, where the guidelines, the Vishaka guidelines, don't really apply. And these work situations in the industry are really like migratory work. You work on a project, you're associated with it for a couple of months, and then it wraps up and you move to the next project. So then again, depending on the production house, depending on the actor, you face a whole different other set of circumstances. There's no consistency of standards, of ethics, as you would have in a proper organization. So it again makes this a very risky space for women. I think it's really important, like Harshika's, that we even discuss positive experiences. And I think it's important that at least on an unofficial level, there is some system which really rates work environments based on how safe they are for women. I don't think we should shy away from that. I think we should go public with that. And those people who are doing the right thing and are ethical and do provide a safe working space for women, that should be highlighted. And it should really be something that is publicly acknowledged and available to everybody, like a rating system.
But Adwaita, when you talk about public scrutiny, and this is the biggest fear for anybody to actually come out in the open and talk about the ordeal that he or she has suffered, do you think that setting up the provision that was actually advised by the High Court in the state of an internals complaint committee, do you think, and this question is for both you and Harshika, do you think that helps? Do you think it is even practical?
Like I said, these are like migratory situations. And I think Harshika will be able to speak a lot more on that, because I'm a writer, so I'm not on set as often, but a set situation is like a workplace, and then it shuts down and you move to another workplace. So there's no consistency, and actors move, if we're speaking about actors here, or even female assistant directors or anyone who works on a set, will move from location to location, from venue to venue. There are no working hours that are restricted. You could be working around the clock, you could be working at at 3 in the morning. So, the environment is very unnatural in that sense, where you can put in those conditions that will ensure safety. So it's a very dynamic work environment. And I think Harshika will be able to explain it in more personal terms.
Yes,
Absolutely. Harshika, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Griha, what I feel is, like Advaita mentioned, in a college, now we usually have someone called, a person like someone who takes care of the dress code, someone who takes care of, what we wear to the college, what, how we are supposed to behave in the class. There is a complaint and there's someone who comes and tells, no, this is not how it is supposed to be. Your costume, your salwar is supposed to be below the knee length. I studied in Christ College and I had a dress code, and that's how I was, that's how everyone were taken care in the college. In that sense, we cannot do something like that in the film industry, because everyone, like Advaita mentioned, we keep traveling from one place to the other. We have different locations. We have sometimes even different countries. We keep traveling, and then we keep meeting different people. Like we have a song shoot, we have a choreographer, and we have a couple of dancers. And then if we are doing some scenes, we have other senior artists, and we have many artists who come into the film, like to the set. So it's not easy about counseling, like how we have a counselor in college and they take care. It's not easy to counsel that way. But then I think there has to be some way where the girls, the actresses, the female actors who come to the set are asked about how comfortable are they when they come to the location. Are they even doing well? Is someone troubling them, or is there anything that is causing any kind of problem in their life? And I think that will help, maybe a female producer or maybe an assistant director in the film industry, in the movie set, who's always there and who's kind of observing everything, and who tries to. And also, again, if there is a committee which is formed, which only takes care of these things, which only does counseling, and which kind of finds out like if anyone's uncomfortable, and I think that should work with her. I don't know. I mean, maybe if that is applied in few production houses, and if others continue to do it, I think that will help, because there is a girl, every girl is comfortable talking to another girl, but it's all about the trust factor. So the minute she comes from the production house, I don't think this girl will be even open to talk about it. This has to be somebody from a committee which is formed, and someone who comes regularly to the sets and talks to the actresses casually, not like, not kind of trying to make them feel uncomfortable. It
Probably
needs to be
providing a safe
casual
vibe
talk.
and taking the conversation forward. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
It needs to be a very
Advaita and
casual
Harshika,
talk,
thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We just hope that all this really helps making all our industries really safer for women, and that entire toxicity that we have been talking about really goes away. That is the kind of work environment is, in fact, that we all would love to be in. Thank you so much, Advaita and Harshika, for joining me on this debate. And on that note, I'm slipping into a very short break here on the broadcast. Let's take a look at more news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight with me, Griha. Now, the language war sparked off by Bollywood actor Ajay Devgan this time is intensifying. After Ajay Devgan claimed that Hindi was India's national language amidst his spat with Kannada film star Kicha Sudeep, several southern politicians and stars have waded into the controversy. On the one hand, we saw protests by pro-Kannada activists, and on the other, we also saw politicians slamming the actor. Congress leader Siddaramaiah said that Hindi was and never will be our national language. In fact, former Karnataka Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy also accused Ajay Devgan of propagating BJP's one nation, one language agenda. In fact, let's also take a look at what the Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai said. He also accused Ajay Devgan of really going ahead and igniting the language debate. He in fact backed the Kannada actor Sudeep, saying that he is right and everyone should respect his point of view. Bomai also added that since states have been formed, mother tongues have assumed importance.
ಸುದೀಪ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸರಿ ಇದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳು ಭಾಷಾವಾರು ಪ್ರಾಂತ್ಯಗಳಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ರೀಜ್ನಲ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಹತ್ವ ಇದೆ. ಅದೇ ಸಾರ್ವಭೌಮ. ಅದೇ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನು ಸುನೀಲ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸುದೀಪ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸುದೀಪ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿರುವಂಥ ವಿಚಾರ ಸರಿ ಇದೆ. ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಮನಗಾಣಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತು ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು.
So this entire controversy between Ajay Devgan and, of course, Kicha Sudeep, which in fact eventually turned out to be a brotherly spat on Twitter, which both the actors ended up saying that it wasn't really a spat. Ajay Devgan ended up talking out of turn over a comment that Kicha Sudeep had made at KGF Chapter 2 press conference, where he was lauding how well the film has been received all across the country and the world, and the kind of money that the film is actually raking in. After that, there was a comment by Ajay Devgan where he took to his social media handle and in Hindi really addressed Sudeep and said that why do actors from the South film industry go ahead and try and dub their films in Hindi when they don't consider Hindi as the national language, because Hindi in fact is the national language. So he was incorrect on two aspects technically. However, this is something that Sudeep really took it in his stride. He in fact responded to Ajay Devgan in all gracefulness, and he was lauded. And that is the kind of response that both his fans and the political parties also who have backed Sudeep have been giving when it comes to the response that we got from Kicha Sudeep. Now, we also spoke to actor Prakash Belwadi over this entire issue and how he feels that this entire debate on Hindi imposition should really not die down, and we should actually go ahead and address it. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
There is a real issue with Hindi imposition for non-Hindi speaking states, because when Article 343 to 351 were put into the Constitution to promote Hindi nationally, I think a grave error was made, and it led to many problems. Two of them I'll mention now. One of them is that it said that Hindi is the largest spoken language in India, and that is why it had to be the official language of India. It was not the national language. Hindi and English are declared official languages of India. Actually, English was given as a concession later. But the problem with that is that it is largest spoken where? So you can actually have a state where no Hindi is spoken at all. And if you put Hindi there as a medium, or if you put that as the official language and people have to read boards they can't understand, what would it mean? That was the question, and that's a genuine question, and that has to be genuinely met. Those articles have to be amended to make it more equitable. All the Desi Bhashas of India have to be represented equally. The danger with this is it is bad for Yash. His film is doing very well. You can have some mobs somewhere in some part of Hindi-speaking India where they will no longer continue to screen the film, or there could be a film by Sudeep that will not get traction, in a dub version of Sudeep's film that will not be allowed somewhere, or for that matter, Ajay Devgan's film could be stopped somewhere or other in the south. And this is all nonsense. We should not allow it.
So all this drama started because of this one man, Ajay Devgan. I happened to speak to him earlier. Let's take a look at that sliver of that interview, which we will, of course, be getting you over the weekend. Let's take a look at what he had to say about his release, Runway 34, and other things, especially the social media. Do you think people, off late on social media have become really, really combative, and they get ruffled in the wrong way by any and everything, and especially when it comes to actors?
So see, whatever we do or whatever we say, there are two opinions. So if you're right also, there are 50% people who will say you're right, 50% people who are waiting, to react and to troll you. So there is no escape route. So either the only way is to keep quiet. That's why people so many times say that actors should have an opinion on everything. That opinion does not matter, because whatever the opinion, right or wrong, I'm not saying we're always right, you will get trolled. There will be a certain section of people who will say, okay, correct, and a certain section who will troll you. So I think a lot of people have nothing much to do in life. So they just sit doing this. Because where is the time? Would you do something like this? I mean, you're a working person. Would you do something? If you're not even a working person, I mean, you have a life. Yeah. Would you be sitting there and trolling people? If there is an issue which is very close to your heart and it concerns maybe the country or things like this or the society, then maybe you would react to it. But otherwise, who has the time to do it? I think so. When you see the trolls, you know these are not the people who matter. You know, because they're doing it for the sake of it. People, it matters to, not the people who are close to you and love you also. I'm saying generally people who are sensible enough, they will react to it when they really think they need to react to something. Will not just do it just sitting there every day, every morning, afternoon, evening on everything. So it should not matter to you, I feel.
Well, it was interesting how Ajay Devgan talks about agitation on social media and also talks about how people end up trolling everyone on social media. Did he not do that with Kicha Sudeep as well? That's something that we will let you answer for yourselves.